Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Deducation. The Teacher Psyche Terror podcast for myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are back to talk about a movie that is going to divide us for sure. We are back to talk about a 2022 movie called You Won't Be Alone, a Australian, UK, Serbian, Macedonian language fairy tale horror film. Just to get it all out of the way, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I found this movie very just beautiful. I felt the camera work and cinematography were excellent. I felt the themes behind it were very empowering, especially to females and people of overlooked diverse groups. I really took a lot from this film, and I'm like, this movie is fantastic. Courtney.
And it took me over a week to finish it in 3 different settings because I fell asleep in all 3. Actually, I literally just fell asleep trying to finish it. And I had to keep rewinding it. So I will say the effects in this movie, 10 out of 10. Like I
do sound
agree
effects.
With you. Yes, like this, like you said, the camera, wonderful. And it really wasn't even the fact that it was subtitled, which partway through my subtitles literally disappeared.
Oh, okay.
For probably 20 minutes.
They probably got tired of being run.
Yeah. And
did you turn them back on? Or did they just disappear?
Well, I went over and there was no option.
Oh, okay.
For them to be turned on. And I was like, what's going on? Because I know that Mike had subtitles or he would have told me about this.
Right.
So, yeah. And then I paused it later on because I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. And the sound of their voice is aggressive. So I want to know what they're upset about. And so I went and then I had to start over and go back to where I was. So it was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it sounds like your experience in trying to watch the film.
It was not great.
And I will give you some credit where credit is due. Like, you're not a big fan of subtitled film.
Yeah, no.
And so when we knew this would be in a different language, I knew you're like, oh no. And I did expect it to be slow, and it was slow. It clocks in at just a little over an hour and a half. But I really, now, would it be a movie I'd necessarily watch again? I'd watch it again, but it's not going to be on repeat by any means. I got a lot of the big vibe I got from this movie was like a mashup between like The Little Mermaid and Rapunzel.
Rapunzel, 100%. Yes.
And The Little Mermaid just because she didn't have a voice. And so this movie This movie spans a long set of years. Like, it's not even.
Yeah,
at least 16, but more than that.
Yeah, it's like, a long time.
But this movie really, to me, it's set like in the 1800s, kind of Macedonia. What the movie kicks off, like it really sets the lore of the film right away.
Mm-hmm.
Of, we've got people like thrashing cornfields, you could tell it's an old pre-technology setting. And we've got a woman that's giving birth, not in a bed. Yeah. She's like literally like hands up against a tree or something, and like
just dropping a kid off.
Yeah, she stops work long enough to go give birth and then goes back to work. Well, as she's taking this newborn, probably that night or whatever, very, very shortly after birth, she's home alone with the newborn, and we hear something in the background. And this movie does really play off sound a lot. My wife did not watch it with me, but I was watching it on my iPad. And of course, with it being in subtitle, I wasn't worried about any language. But she, at one point, she goes, the movie's got a lot of sound, a lot of squishy, a lot of,
this baby, side note.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, adorable.
Very cute kid. Yeah,
So cute.
very, very cute kid.
Yeah.
But the mom turns around and
Yeah.
sitting with the baby is this just horribly burned, scarred woman. It's a
Yeah.
witch. The whole movie.
A wolf
Nobody, yeah,
eatress.
nobody calls her a witch. Her name's
Right.
Maria, and she's just like the wood witch, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
she has come to snatch this baby because that's what witches do. Witches, at least in this folklore, they like feed off of blood, etc. Not
Yeah.
really vampires, but that's how they keep themselves going. She's gonna snatch this baby, and the mother is just pleading with her, please. I've always wanted to be a mother. Let me be a mother. Just let me be a mother.
And like, I'm kind of like, over the course of the next 16 years, no, go ahead and take her because that's not how I would want to be a mother.
Right. Of just the fear of it's coming.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Yes.
doomsday.
And it's like you're gonna build this relationship with your child, and then they're just gone.
Yeah. And
So
so
yeah.
the witch agrees. Maria agrees. 16 years. I will be back on her 16th birthday. And before she goes, cuts the baby's tongue off.
Yeah.
Like just whoosh, real quick with her thumbnail, cuts off the baby's tongue. And that's how the movie starts.
Yeah.
The mother, like you said, in absolute fear of her child being abducted 16 years later, takes the super aggressive approach to take this baby right now, Navina, as the daughter's name is, which it doesn't really matter the baby's name because she changes names multiple times through the movie. We'll get to why in a moment. But she takes this baby and she basically goes and finds this cavern thing that's like pretty vacant, but also no one seems to know it's there. And of course, the baby can make no sound. And she just goes and puts this baby in this cave and then tells everybody that the wolf featuress took her baby. Like, my baby's been stolen by a witch. And that's where she leaves this kid for 16 years. Like, she comes all the time to feed it. But this girl, as she grows up, is feral as you can get. Knows nothing about the outside world.
She's like Mowgli.
Yeah, the only person she's ever seen is her mother, and her mother doesn't really even spend time with her. She just drops off food and runs because she's afraid she'll be discovered.
And you can tell, like, they paid such close detail. Like, when she's looking up and you can see her teeth, like, they are just covered in just gunk.
Yeah, you could.
And it's just like the detail that they paid attention.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, you weren't watching some Hollywood actress that's been brushing her teeth for 16 years in this cave. No, it was gross. The girl turned 16. We see her in a couple of different, like, oh look, she's growing scenes. And an eagle flies into this cave because it's got some holes up above. Eagle flies in and perches. Of course, the daughter has no idea what it is. The mom immediately knows what's going on. Chases this bird off into the shadows. The mom chases the bird into the shadows, and then this is again where the sounds kick in. The movie shows enough gore, but it's not gory. Like, it really doesn't go over the top in showing a bunch of murders and things like that. But the mom chases this eagle into the shadows. Long story short, Maria has the ability to be a shapeshifter. If she kills you, she can take your form. And so mom runs off into the shadows as one person, comes out of the shadows as the witch, but still looks like mom. So now just her demeanor with her daughter is completely different. The daughter has no clue what's going on. She's following her mom out of the cave. She follows her mom out of the little village. She follows her mom into the woods. And then she's just following. That's all she's doing is following. And I love that this movie shows more than it tells as well. If you're paying attention, we realize how Maria can be, how these witches can be shapeshifters. Basically, they kill you, and then they rip a hole open in their chest.
Yeah.
And they start shoving parts of you inside of the hole in their chest and then they become you. And when they're done becoming you, they rip a hole open in their chest and they take those parts out and just leave them. And then they go, she goes back into her witch form. So this daughter sees this transformation. Like she turns around and now she's with this woman that's not her mother, has no clue what's going on. And she has she can't speak. She has no knowledge of the world. She has no idea who this person is. It was her mother. Now it's not. And then Maria, she gives her the witch's spit, this ceremony that a witch can do one time in their life where they can turn another person into a witch. And they basically, she takes her witch's claws, which she's got these like really cool looking, just black daggerly fingernails. And she just like cuts her chest open and then like spits into the wound. And now you're a witch. Like that's all it takes. Yeah. You don't have to like have a cauldron or like eat frog's eyes or anything like that.
Kind of brands her a little bit with
pretty
some
much.
fire and
pretty
that's
much.
it. And then Navina gets, now she's got the black fingers.
Yeah.
And,
just they grow out instantly and it's like, okay, you're a witch now. But again, the downside is Maria, we find out her backstory later. Maria lived a life.
Yeah.
Like Navina knows nothing. Nothing. And so Maria, you could tell as we find out later in her backstory, like I think Maria's always wanted to be a mother.
Yeah.
And that's why she wanted this baby to begin with. And now at 16, she wants to be a mother, but it's a real uphill climb because she's missed out on 16 years. Yep. So, she's got the witch's powers, but she doesn't have any knowledge. And so she tries to teach Navina how to, because basically once you're a witch, you gotta live a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, and she's like catching animals, breaking them open, like drink their blood. Like this is how you'll live.
Yeah.
And Navina is just like, whew,
well, not only is it gross, but she has no idea.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't know what animals are. Like,
and the way that like, I don't know if it was a cat or whatever, but the way that she just like broke it up and it looks like a rotisserie chicken, almost just like opened up.
It was gross.
Navina tried it and then she just kind of spit it out. And the way that Maria just shoved her face in there and you can hear like the
slurping and
sloshing around of the blood and organs.
Yeah. And she'd rather like Maria's trying so hard to teach her how to survive as a witch. Navina'd rather just play with the creatures. Like, it's just, she gets to the point where she's angered her mother, this witch, Maria. And Maria's told her, like, people will hurt you. Mm-hmm. Like, you will be hurt. And of course, Navina can't talk. So there's no communication. We hear Navina's internal thoughts the entire movie, which is really what the driving force of this movie is. There is an entire world out here that Navina has never been allowed to experience before. And because of Maria's actions that we're just discussing, Navina is not going to be able to discover them because she's a witch.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't even know what it means to be a witch other than, like Maria tells her, like, you're not going to make it. Mm-hmm. And Maria gets just upset. It just abandons her. Like, I'm
she's
done.
Like, you're on your own.
Right.
Zip. I want nothing to do with you.
Like I've tried and I can't, and I'm done.
And this is where my subtitles cut out.
Oh,
I remember the last word being zip.
Yeah. She did. She just shut her out. It was like, basically, I've tried. I'm done. Like, I think Maria was angry at herself too. Like, I wasted my one witching spit on you. Like, I've waited 16 years.
An unfortunate.
Yeah, like I've waited 16 years for you specifically, and you're just a waste. Mm-hmm. Like Navina, she just continues to follow Maria, even though Maria, she's just ignoring her. She knows she's there. She's got to know she's there, but she does see Maria turn herself into a wolf. And we already know how she does it. I mean,
Yes.
we just explained it. She kills a wolf, puts its entrails into her chest. So now Navina, through watching, is like, oh, okay. Okay. So now she's got the clue. She knows she needs to feed, but now she's like, wait a minute. I'm not trapped in this form. You know, like I can get out of this. So Navina, just through her stumbles and her internal dialogue or whatever, this is where things really start to pick up. She comes across a village. She doesn't mean to kill this woman. She accidentally kills this woman. And then after seeing what Maria did, she did it too. I killed this lady, so I'm going to turn into this lady. And live her life. Like that's how Navina, Basilka is this new lady that she's taken over. That's why I said the names aren't necessarily important, because at no point are there two people playing the same role.
Correct.
You know, so she assumes the life of this woman. She's already into a village, so she doesn't have to be introduced to anything. She just has to learn how to live within. So she's mute. She's pretty clueless on why people do what they do. But again, she's not viewed as an outsider. She's viewed as a part of this village because she's assumed the role of this person.
They just think that she's gone crazy.
Right.
Like
yeah.
she's lost her mind.
They just assume, oh man, something happened and you're crazy now. So she slowly does figure this stuff out. You know, how to cook, how to communicate, how to wash. It was a really, I had a lot of really awesome scenes that I really enjoyed in this movie, but I really enjoyed the few seconds on film where we saw her have a tongue for the first time. When she assumes the role of this mother in this village, and she's never had a tongue her entire life. So she doesn't know what to do with it, but it was just so like reliving a little bit. Like I having a couple of kids of my own, and they're old enough that like their baby time was a decade ago, you know? But just to watch that discovery, it's like, here's a person who now has a tongue, and she would have never had a tongue on her own, but because of the body she's in, you know, she's taken over. It's like, she's just sticking it out. It's like, this is amazing. She still doesn't know how to talk because she's never done it, but she also picks up some clues on how she's treated by the men and women in the village. And so it's been, you know, realizing that it's not a one size fits all dynamic, which unfortunately it still is not in today's world. Meanwhile, we see like Maria's hasn't given up on her. Like, she's still kind of this like sage from afar. She pops every time Navina does this shape shifting, she's showing up. Yeah. Well, Basilka has a husband, and he's abusive to her, but that's just expected in the village because Basilka's husband's father is abusive, and even like the mother-in-law is like, she's got to take it. Yep. You know, and she goes, I know my son is worthless, my husband is worthless, but this is how they are. He's forcing himself on her sexually. Of course, she has no idea what's going on. Yeah. Not a clue. And he, of course, has no clue she's a witch, so she panics and kills him. Like,
and this is where she just kind of leaves Basilka behind. And heads to the next place where she finds a dog. And follows this group of young men. She then goes back into herself. Yes. And kind of like, again, I still didn't have subtitles here. So if I'm missing
you're okay.
something like super important, I'm literally just going off what I watched.
to be fair, and I'd said in a text before, you know, that this movie's very fairy tale like. It really is very fairy tale like. And with that, the dialogue is not what's pushing this movie ahead. Right. You didn't miss anything. As long as you were paying attention to what the scenes were, they weren't having any important, like, important narrative conversation
Right.
going on. Everything was visual for you on the screen.
And so she kind of seduces this one guy away.
Boris.
Yeah. And
with, like you said, with her female sexuality.
yeah.
Because this is something that she picked up in the village that, you know, because even her mother-in-law was like, you just, if he wants to be with you, you're with him. Like
Yeah.
So she's realized, okay, women have a little bit of power here. And so she uses it to lure Boris.
And so she kills him.
Yep.
And takes on his identity.
In a whole different village.
Yes. And this is where people like are like, he's possessed, something's going on with him. Like
I don't know when your subtitles came back, but yeah, she was in his body. She was still like, I don't know what a man does. So she's learning all this. Well, it wasn't so much that he was possessed. They assumed that he went off in the woods and had sex with a wolf eatress. Like they just, because they're like, oh, you know, you idiot, you did it. And so it was more just the aftermath of that, of like, look what it did to you. Now you're just a confused idiot. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much you possessed. It's like almost like, well, you shouldn't have slept with her, you know.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I think my subtitles had come back, because Maria was calling Navina a twit for, you know, just you're getting in trouble and doing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But Navina continues to live Boris's life and she enjoys it. Well,
yeah, it's kind of charming in a way. It really is, because he is basically he's just this beautiful cut idiot. And that's all the village knew him as anyway. So it was easy for her. But again, now completely dialogue free because he can't talk. But yeah, so there was, I guess they did. Later on, they accused him of sleeping with the wolf eatress. But yeah, later on when he was acting kind of goofy. Yeah, that's where they were like, we think you're possessed because of that.
I just remember someone was like holding him back.
Yeah, because they attempted an exorcism.
You know, she slept with someone for the first time in a male body, and she's like, I mean,
well,
she was like, he was crying.
He was once again. Navina had sex forced upon her.
Yes,
but as a male this time.
Yeah.
It was like one of the milkmaids was like making eyes at him. It was like, let's go up in the hayloft. Of course, Navina's like, okay, not knowing what's coming. And then this woman just disrobes and has her way with him. But yeah, it was the complete opposite reaction that she experienced when being taken advantage of in the previous village as a woman. It was like, whoa, like fireworks and so I keep cutting you off, but go ahead.
No, you're fine. We hop to the next village now, and she sees someone giving birth over at a fence. And this is where she comes in with all the kids, right?
Yes. What had happened was she's still the guy.
Yes.
She's still the guy. She's still Boris. And a bunch of kids come running in. That one little girl fell off the rocks.
Yes.
And so Boris reacted quicker. And so he got to the rocks and he found this girl's dead body that, she'd fallen from a pretty good height, probably crushed her skull as she hit the rocks. So she's dead. And then, of course, Navina is still deep on the inside. I think she really cares about human life because she never experienced it. So this is all learning for her. So this is something she had never had the opportunity to be. So next thing you know, the little girl, which we know what happened off screen, rips her chest open, dumps out Boris's stuff, puts in the little girl stuff, and assumes the role of the little girl. Definitely a part of her life that was completely missed for her because when she spent her entire childhood, it was in a cave by herself. So Bilyana. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Navina, like as Boris cries for the first time, like she's understanding grief. And yeah, this is where she takes on Bilyana and comes back into Boris's village. So it's all the same people, but now she's a little girl. She's not Boris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So go ahead.
she gets a friend
Yes.
who also doesn't talk.
No, yeah, he seems to be mute as well.
And they're sitting around one night listening, reminding me of just like little campfire stories.
Yeah.
And they're all like, tell us about the old maid Maria. Tell us about the old maid Maria.
Which really, like, Navina as Bilyana really perks up. Like,
yeah.
Because she, of course, knows old maid Maria.
Knows her.
And it's always just been this folk tale. And so she really, so this is where we get, this is such a tragic backstory. Oh.
I'll let you take the backstory.
We get the backstory of old maid Maria. Centuries ago, she was just a woman living with her dad, unmarried, just whatever. It's just caring for her father. Yeah. That's just the two of them. She comes across a witch, Maria. This is not witch Maria yet. This is just human Maria. She comes across a witch and begs her because she wants the things she can't have. Like, I just want a husband and a child. That's all I've ever wanted. And this is where the witch then, like, claws her chest and spits at it. So, marks her, basically. And so, okay, it is what it is. A person shows up at the house, to talk to her, an older man that's like, I'm looking for a wife for my son. Well, why didn't your son come by him? The dad's even like, why didn't your son come for himself? He's like, he's busy. We came for him, but don't worry. Like, everything's perfect. And so Maria's just beside herself. Like, finally, like, my prayers have been answered. Because the dad's like, yeah, you're not getting any younger. Go ahead. And so she packs up and moves to this village to meet this man that she's going to marry. Well, this is where it's so tragic. Mm-hmm. She gets there only to find out that she'd been lied to. The parents of the guy, the mom and dad, are like the guy's on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Basically an invalid. He's on his deathbed, and the parents were like, we're not going to let our boy die a virgin. We're not going to. Yeah. So, with their assistance, the three of them basically force her down and rape her. It's so awful. Like the villagers are in on it. Like, this whole village is like, my son has to spread his seed. He's the last of the bloodline. Our family will die away without it. So she's been conned into this. Again, she is a witch. She's done everything but feed. But so she's been raped and basically left of like, okay, we're done with you. But because she's already been like spit, she's so weak that she like kills a cow and drinks its blood in an attempt to strengthen herself again. Well, she gets caught doing it. So these people are like, you're a witch, you're a wolf eatress. So while all it takes is fire, like you mentioned earlier, when Navina was being turned, it takes fire to be turned into a witch. She's got the first step done of being clawed and spit. She hasn't been burnt. Well, when they see her drinking the cow's blood, they assume she's a witch. They tie her to the stake and lower her into the fire. In their mind thinking, aha, we just killed a witch. But in reality, they just created a witch.
Yep.
And so now Maria's trapped in this just burned, scarred body, still seeking that child, which is what brings us full circle to why she wanted this baby so bad. It's so like passionate and awful and terrifying. To just think that it's like, I just got duped, like Like somebody came to my house, was like, "Hey, you should come meet my son," and then it turns out to just be like 18th century human trafficking. So we now have Navina, who is still Billiana. She gets to live the role of a child. She gets to grow up in this village. And she sees that as a child, like, that is what she's been looking for. She tried it as a woman, didn't work out. She tried it as a man. It worked better, but not quite what she was looking for. But as a child, no responsibilities. She's expected to learn. She's expected to play all these things that she doesn't know anything about. She gets to do. And so they've grown up. She's grown up. She marries that boy that was the mute from earlier. She really, really is in love. Like, fully, like, my life is so fulfilled now that she reveals that she's a witch to him. You know, she reveals that and he's fine with it. Like, he's not afraid because he also loves her for who she is. Nobody else knows she's a witch, of course, except Maria. And she gets pregnant. She gets a lot of action in this movie for somebody that doesn't have any idea what to do. And then her life comes crumbling down. She finds out that her husband's been killed by a boar. Well, who was the boar?
Old Maid Maria.
Old Maid Maria. I think Maria has elevated to a point of jealousy now. Yeah. Because she's been watching Navina from afar get the treatment she's always wanted.
Yes. And it really escalates when Navina gives birth. Yeah. And she's scared for the right reasons. Absolutely. That her baby girl is going to be taken away. And so she Maria does show up one day. Yeah. And just kind of like messes with the baby before she just slits her throat.
Yeah. Like, it's not even, I'm going to take your baby's voice. Yeah. I'm going to take your baby's life. Like, you are not going to live a better life than me. Yeah. I gave this to you. Oh.
Nirvana, she uses that one witch spell. Yeah. And just selfless, like, gives, I mean, not her life, but in retrospect, like, gives her life to her kid.
Yeah, I mean, she has the opportunity to witch one person. Yeah. And she does it to her newborn baby and to save her life.
Yeah, and this is where it kind of just unfolds. Like, Maria realizes, like, wow, like, you truly do love your daughter, and, like, I've never had anything like that.
Like, reveals her jealousy of, like, you know, like, and you feel like you, after that backstory, you can't help but feel for Maria too. I can't, like, I understand, not that her actions are true, but I see where she's coming from. Of like, I didn't ask for the life I got. Well, I did ask for the life. I just didn't get the life I wanted. Right. And now you're getting the life I wanted. It's like it skipped my witch generation. Yeah. And so Navina sets her baby down and kills Maria, which Maria is open to. And as that, we get just this like flash through of all of the lives Navina had lived. Leaving out, of course, like the dog, you know? but walking. And that's really it. Like there really was there was a plot to this movie, but at the same time, it was more of just the story of life from this different perspective of what if you were robbed of your youth and instead started living at 16, but then had to do it as a witch. And so that is our film. You Won't Be Alone. I'm curious. I know my grade, but let's get your grade out of the way first.
I don't think my grade's going to be as low as some might think. Just because, again, like, I loved the attention to detail. And so it's like some we've talked about, you know, they had like a kid had a great idea to write about, but I just didn't love their paper. Yeah. I'm going to give it a C+. Okay. I don't know if you thought I'd do worse than that, but
I didn't know. I do know you well enough that sometimes, like, you have a heart, and so,
I do.
And what I mean by that is not only that, you know, that you have a heart, but that sometimes I think when you see how passionate I get about something, you're like, oh, I don't want to ride it too low.
Well, and I don't know. Sometimes I do feel, but sometimes I think your passion kind of is like, okay, I can curve it a little bit because it does make someone else feel this way.
Yeah.
Someone else like to read the paper.
This movie caught me off guard. I was not expecting it to be this good. I wasn't expecting it to be bad, but I definitely was not expecting it to be just this, like, that was an experience. Like, it really was a well thought out, it just, I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. I'm going to give the movie an A.
Okay.
You know, it has a 6.4 on IMDb. I think it deserves much higher than a 6.4. But
it's a bunch of people out there like me that
but I will. It is a horror film. It's not scary.
Right.
There is gore, but not in the kills. Like, so there's a lot of like fringe.
Yeah.
You know, of like, well, you know, yeah, it had elements, but they weren't using the elements the way I hoped they would have. Yes, it's a foreign film. That knocks a couple points off of it because people don't like to read. Like, I get it. There's a lot out there. But if you really are a cinema fan, I don't want to call it a movie fan.
Right.
You know, because I think, there's...
I get what you're saying there because...
Movie fans...
Like, you appreciate... Sorry, we both just cut...
No, we're fine.
Just talking. You appreciate, like, the small details.
Right.
And like me, I feel like more so, I don't want to say my generation, but we just want to know, is it going to keep us from the beginning to the end?
Yeah. Well, and that's fair.
Is it easy to watch? Is it, you know?
There's a difference between watching a movie purely for entertainment and watching a movie and getting more than entertained. And so I went into this thinking like, okay, it's our next movie. Didn't even know I had it. And I'm like, fine, random. But I'm glad I did because this, honestly, if it weren't for the show, if I was just shuffling through my Plex drive, this would have been a movie that if it showed up on Shuffle, I'd have been like, I don't feel like watching that. Just because I don't know anything about it. So I'm grateful for the show because it did put me in a position where it's like, okay, got to watch this for the show. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, I really, really love this movie. Like, it's just so well done. The director and cinematographer were just creative and like it just felt liberating in a sense that the people in charge really knew what they were doing. And so top to bottom, I thought it was just a really solid film. You know, they knew what they had. They trusted the story. Like, they easily could have taken, you know, Old Maid Maria and hidden her in the shadows or, you know, tried to make her look scarier. But instead, they just put her right out in front because, like, that's her. She's a burn victim witch. That's just what she looks like. That's her. And so we don't have to go hide her in the shadows or hide her in the fog or like, no, she's going to sit right there in broad daylight because that's her. You know, just like there's people that live in our world that may not be the most cosmetically beautiful, quote unquote, beautiful looking people, but they're still here. Yeah. And so we shouldn't expect them to like designate themselves to dark rooms or, you know, it's like, no, they deserve, it's like, they deserve it. And so it was a gut wrenching backstory of Old Maid Maria. I felt terrible for her. I really enjoyed this movie. I could see myself watching this again. It wouldn't be anytime soon, but it would need to be when like, okay, I can't get that movie out of my mind. I want to watch it again. You know, it wouldn't be one where I'm like trying to share it with a movie fan. Like, no, I want someone that's like, I want something with some, you know, just some cinema behind it. I'm like, watch this one. And so that would be where I go with it. So it is scratch off time.
Yes.
Which means the likelihood of going from a movie like this to another movie with quote unquote cinema ties could be high, considering these are supposed to be the 100 the hundreds, best horror movies ever made. So let's shuffle, and we are watching. We're going to come back to one. What we haven't watched this one before, but we've watched its remake before. We are going to, for next week, watch 1942's Cat People.
Oh.
Yeah. This will be kind of fun because, again, we did the remake before we did the original. This movie clocks in about an hour and 12 minutes. Yeah. Very atmospheric. I remember Cat People having some like cool special effects and some gore to it.
Yeah.
Back in 1942, you didn't have that. And so,
yeah.
But we know the story.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember the story, we know the story.
Yes.
But I will tell you here, I've seen this one a couple of times. This comes from the same producer as I Walked with a Zombie.
Okay,
Val Lewton. So it's going to have that black and white atmospheric feel to it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's going to work well with shadows and lighting and things like that. It's not going to be, I don't know. I'm not going to say it won't be scary because but it's 1942. It's not going to keep you up at night.
Right.
But no, that'll be a good one. I do like this movie. And again, seeing the remake, it'll be curious to see how well this ties in and how much you like, or which one you like better. So, yeah, Roger Ebert. You ever heard Roger Ebert? Probably not.
No.
There were arguably probably the world's most famous movie critics back in the 80s, Siskel and Ebert. They're out of Chicago. Roger Ebert actually just had a film he's passed away now, but there's a film festival in his name in Champaign every year. But Roger Ebert was a big voice for cinema. Their rating system would be thumbs up, thumbs down. And so they would always there'd be a show on the weekends called Siskel and Ebert Go to the Movies or something like that, where Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert would be on screen together, and they would just talk about like upcoming releases that they've already seen and then give their thumbs up, thumbs down. So if you ever see anything pop culture wise, it's like, I give that movie 2 thumbs up or something like that. It came from Siskel and Ebert. But Roger Ebert has described this movie and other Val Lewton movies as landmark films of the 40s. So that's what we are up against, is Simone Simon and Cat People. Do you have anything you'd like to share before we get going for the week?
Well, I can't even say have a nice time outside because the weather is not supposed to be great.
Yeah, that's okay. That'll give us time to watch Cat People and maybe get another episode knocked out before 8 days from now. So this one is in English. So there you go. You won't have to read it.
Woohoo!
Yeah. All right. Well, for another episode of Deducation, I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we'll be back next week with the original Cat People.
Bye.